Hello everyone, amateur meteorologist, First Weather here. Welcome to another video. It is May 18th, 2020, and this is another forecast discussion, and we will be focusing on Tropical Storm Arthur and also a major upper level cutoff low over the eastern United States that will be affecting the weather really for the next 5 to 7 days over the eastern part of the country. So let's get right into it. This is an animation of Tropical Storm Arthur. This is the long wave radiation. You can see that spin right here. And one thing that you really notice is that, if we can get this pen to show up, this is where the center of that storm is. You have the eastern side of convection right here, and you have that western side of convection right over here. And so you can see that most of the convection and rain is really on the eastern side of the system, and then the western side, which is pulling in drier air from the landmass, is really causing not too much of any precipitation to form. And this is really typical of weak tropical systems that don't really have the major strength of a weak hurricane or higher or even a stronger tropical storm. So this is really a telltale sign that this system is not really that potent, but nonetheless it did provide some gusty winds for the Outer Banks and southeast portions of Virginia along these areas, and they even had some tropical storm watches over the past 2 days or so. And some areas saw a little bit of a pretty good amount of rain, nothing significant, but as you can see, these outer bands right here on the western flank of Arthur did brush the southeastern portion of the southeast portion of the southeast. And so here's the official National Weather Service track. As you can see, it is expected to move generally east, northeast, and then turn southeasterly, then pretty much due south. And this is interesting because if this turns due south, there's a legitimate possibility that Arthur will meander throughout the Atlantic for several days. And it will be interesting to see what happens to Arthur after that, after it cycles back around or potentially dies out. And now here is the GFS ensemble showing why Arthur is turning due south. We have an extremely strong ridge in this area right over here. And so that's forcing it to go nowhere else except down because the winds are coming directly strong in from the north, forcing Arthur to turn eventually due south. And so here is the here's an animation from the NAM 12-kilometer model. You can see Arthur now pulling out like this and then eventually going south. And here is that big upper level low that's a cutoff low underneath a monster ridge. And if it wasn't for this upper level low, we would be seeing a record heat wave over the entire, almost the entire country right now. But what you have here is essentially an omega block, and this is what the GFS and European were showing all the way last week when I recorded my last video. And so that's a trough here, ridge here, and then the upper level low over here. And so this is going to basically be the main driver for weather over the eastern part of the country for the next 5 to 7 days. It's going to be very active, very wet, basically over this region right here. And there could be some serious flooding, especially near the mountains in these areas right over here. And here are some images showing the reflectivity from the NAM model. As you can see, this is Tuesday afternoon. We have the upper level low right here. Arthur is over here, and begins to make its southeasterly journey. But with this low right here, we have basically a wide area of scattered rain bands throughout, stretching all the way to I-64, back west into the Ohio Valley, all the way down to even parts of Florida. And then this is for Wednesday. You can see that the rain has decreased in its coverage, but it's still there, especially in the Carolinas and the western part of Virginia. And then finally, this is Thursday. You can see that we have a large area of rain, especially North Carolina and southwestern Virginia. And finally, we have Friday. Finally starts to weaken as that high really pushes further south and low just spins itself out, and we have the last few remaining lingering rain bands. And this might even last into Saturday, where we have scattered showers in the Tennessee Valley and also western portions of North Carolina and Virginia. And now here is the GFS ensemble total accumulated precip. As you can see, the main core of the heaviest precipitation will be west of I-81, west and south of I-81 and also west of I-95, with the main core looking like to be right around the western part of North Carolina where the mountains are, and also the southwestern portion of Virginia. Another area stretching up north into eastern Kentucky and southwestern Ohio. And here's the NAM showing basically the same thing. We have an extremely sharp cutoff. So areas along I-64 and right along I-95 along and south of I-64, there's going to be a very sharp cutoff here of rain. You might just, in 20 miles, you're going to have the difference between half an inch to up to 2 inches of rainfall. And the NAM is really honing in on this area, especially in southwestern Virginia and near the mountains. That's really going to see the bullseye of the heavier precipitation. And so if we go to the next slide right here, we can see that this is the GFS ensemble finally really pushing out that upper level low, or having it collapse here, finally getting out of the way, with a trough in the west and a big ridge in the east, really making temperatures warm up in the northern half of the country over here. And now if we look at those temperature anomalies from the European model, this is for the same time, we can see the very warm conditions present in the northern part of the country, with relatively cooler conditions right here with that trough. So it looks like by May 24th, after this very cool and unsettled pattern for the next week or so ends, we should enter more of a warm, summer-like pattern for the eastern part of the country after this week, while the west stays unseasonably cool. And this is the European for May 28th. So again, this is now later into next week, and we can see that ridge and that heat really expands throughout the country with that ridging building right here. And now it starts to show the development of a big ridge in the west also. So a very zonal flow, it looks like, with the polar jet stream really retreating to the north, really flooding the country with very warm conditions, with the lone cold spot being Texas right over here. So this really points to a very summer-like pattern, but also relatively dry. Because the pattern will be so zonal, there won't really be any troughing or any systems that can come through and really deliver relief in terms of precipitation. And now here's the European ensemble geopotential height. You can see what's really causing this. You have a big expansive ridge like this, and then you have a shore axis trough right here providing some cold relief to Texas, but then you have the expansion of a big ridge over here. And so you basically have a very warm scenario for the entire country. And again, this is May 25th. So it does look like you're going to have a very sharp warm-up after this initial week of wet conditions. So today, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday will be wet over the southeastern part of the country. But other than that, after that, it looks like things will warm up pretty quickly. And if you look right here, you can see this easterly or negatively tilted trough. And that could mean some severe weather for these areas right here as we head into next week, before we see that zonal pattern really take shape. And now the GFS ensemble is pretty much showing the same thing, that troughing right here. So there really is a good risk of severe weather or basically an outbreak right over here as this then transitions to the east. So it looks like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week need to be watched carefully for the risk of severe weather. But after that, things should really sort of get drier and much warmer. And this is the European ensemble for May 28th. So this is the end of next week. And you can see just ridging across the entire country. It's like a banana high, except it's not. It's flat. And so this essentially means warm conditions for the entire country and very little in the way of drenching precipitation. And here is the GFS ensemble, which is showing pretty much the exact same thing, except it shows a little bit of a trough over the west, but and a stronger ridge to the east. But I think that the GFS does tend to have a bias in amplifying troughing and ridges. So I do think the European here is more correct with that overall ridge across the entire country, with the polar jet stream now fully in retreat to Canada, flooding warm air into the heartland of the country, and also the east and west too. And so that's pretty much it, guys. That's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. The main key points to take is that the southeast and also mid-Atlantic are going to be very warm, or not very warm, excuse me, very wet for the next 5 to 7 days and very unsettled and cool. But after that, we should see a very quick warm-up into next week with temperatures running above to well above average for large portions of the country. And also watch out for the potential severe weather outbreak and storminess for the first half of next week as we see this negative tilted trough move throughout the country. So again, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I'll see you next time.